Hi, you're listening to On Israel in Al Monitor. I'm Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. Just as Israel's Arab neighbors were getting used to the change of administration in Washington, they're having to adapt to a post-Netanyahu era in Jerusalem. The dynamic duo, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, which set the tone for developments between Israel and its neighbors near and far for some 4 years, has exited the stage, and the sides are facing a new state of play. The change is already evident. Last week, reports emerged that Israel's new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, met in secret with Jordan's King Abdullah, the first meeting in 5 years between an Israeli Prime Minister and the monarch next door. Although the palace was infuriated with the leak of the meeting, Netanyahu's departure from office clearly signals the start of reapproachment between the sides. Can Bennett and his partner, Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, fill the big shoes Netanyahu left behind in orchestrating formal relations with Israel's Sunni allies in the region? Will the momentum Netanyahu launched continue? How will the deep crisis in Lebanon affect Israel, and can Israel influence it in any way? Can Israel play a role in second and tier states such as Sudan? We will discuss these and other issues with a veteran expert in this field, Dr. Haim Koren, Israel's former ambassador to Egypt and Israel's first ever ambassador to South Sudan, a respected diplomat in the Middle Eastern arena, a lecturer on Islamic studies who is well versed in the public and clandestine ties between Israel and the Arab and Muslim world. Ambassador Dr. Haim Koren will be with us right after this short break.
If you're listening to this podcast, you obviously care about the Middle East, and if you do, you should probably be reading Al Monitor. Al Monitor is a global newsroom headquartered in Washington, D.C., with a network of over 160 contributors around the world. Al Monitor offers first-class reporting and analysis from a range of perspectives and an approach that represents the highest journalistic standards, as well as an award-winning commitment to press freedom and independence. If you haven't done so already, visit us at almonitor.com, check out our articles, and sign up for our free newsletters. There's a lot to choose from, including the Week in Review, an essay that offers unusual insights and forecasts into the region based upon Al Monitor's outstanding reporting. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our Al Monitor podcast on your favorite podcast platform, On Israel with Ben Caspit, and On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
I'm very privileged to say hello to my colleague, Ambassador Dr. Haim Koren. Hi, Haim. How are you doing?
Good morning. Everything is fine. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with the latest news. Naftali Bennett, the fresh new Prime Minister in Israel, meeting in Amman with King Abdullah. The king agreed to the meeting after refusing any contact with Netanyahu in recent years, following a significant goodwill gesture by Israel, which agreed to double the annual amount of water it supplies Jordan from the Sea of Galilee, from 50 million to 100 million cubic meters in the coming years. Do you see, Dr. Koren, the Bennett-Lapid government fixing what Netanyahu government broke in terms of relations with the Hashemite Kingdom? And how do you see this happening, panning out, given Bennett's ultra-right views?
First, after the visit of Prime Minister Bennett in Jordan, the new president of Israel, Mr. Herzog, has spoken during the weekend with King Abdullah, which is also joining the good news for the bilateral relations. But as you're probably well aware, the mutual relations with Jordan going long back, and I would say the strong informal relations are strategic. So it's very important to both sides to preserve and even to develop their relationship. So it's not a surprise that after some disappointment due to the personal relationship with former Prime Minister Netanyahu and King Abdullah, it would be improvement in the relationship. And I assume that any government in Israel has a very deep interest to strengthen the relationship, and it's including Prime Minister Bennett. So I expecting that the doubling of the amount of water, it will be the first step of strengthening the relationship. And as you're well aware, it goes also to the issue with the gas deal that we have a contract for 15 years and other regional issues. The Jordan is very important part of it. So I can imagine that the government of Israel do anything in order to go on with a good relation.
So allow me to ask now a follow-up question. You just said the government in Israel will do everything, but I guess, having the Kingdom of Jordan contains, I guess, between 70 and 80% Palestinian population, that the king will be very happy if something will move between Israel and the Palestinians, talking about negotiation, renewal of the negotiation. We just heard yesterday about a list of demands by President Mahmoud Abbas to the Americans, that he asked if you want to renew the negotiation. And we just said Naftali Bennett is an ultra-right-wing ideologist. Is it possible? And if not, is it possible to maintain the improvement of the relationship without any move in the Palestinian-Israeli front?
The whole picture in the Middle East in the last months have been changing. So we got used to the situation that we are comparing all the time a kind of equation of two-state solution or a different situation that actually Prime Minister Netanyahu were leading. But in the meantime, there are many, many changes because of the factor of Abraham Accords and so on, which reflecting on the issue of the two-state solution. I know that King Abdullah is intent to raise this issue in his meeting with President Biden in their meeting, and it's an interest of other partners in the Middle East as well, such as Sisi, Egypt, and so on. They would all like to move ahead with the Palestinian issue in order to promote other regional issues, that the Palestinian issue is stuck there and prevent from moving ahead with other issues. So it's interest of most of the parts here to go ahead with that. And even before Abraham Accords, I remember that the Arab League and Arab governments spoke or gave all kind of ideas for Israel, that if they only would approve or improve a little bit the situation of the Saudi proposal or the Arab initiative from 2001 and 2002, that will make our life easier in order to promote the Israeli-Palestinian issue. So having into consideration that this coming government is a coalition, and there are many parts in it, including small wing of Meretz and Ram, of Mansour Abbas, I would guess that many efforts would be done from the part of members like Bennett and Lapid and even Tsar in order to promote kind of attempt to go ahead with that problem. And I assume that Bennett will try to get to a situation while he's trying to persuade Biden administration to enable to go ahead with the track of Abraham Accords, and due to that, to find any way to solve the issue of two-state solution.
Okay, so let's move from our eastern border to what is going on in the northern front, which is very, very interesting and causing a lot of headache here in Jerusalem. It's no less important and far more urgent, and I'm talking about Lebanon. The country is falling apart on live television. People are on the verge of starvation. Defense Minister Benny Gantz even offered Lebanon humanitarian help through the UN should this situation concern Israel or conversely please Israel, because it also weakens one of its greatest enemies, Iran's Hezbollah proxy.
Okay.
So what I wanted to talk about is, should we be happy from what is going on in Lebanon, or concerned or maybe sad because on one hand, Hezbollah is suffering like everybody else in Lebanon. On the other hand, Nasrallah is making an attempt to turn Iran to the savior of Lebanon, which can make Lebanon a total Iranian proxy.
When your neighbor is suffering, it's never a good way to be happy with that. It's our interest in it that our neighbors will be in the best situation that they can, because it contributes to the regional affairs and maybe in the future to promote better relationships. So it's sure that it's our concern, and we care about people, not only humanitarian, from a humanitarian point of view, but also as neighbors with optional issue for better relations. So yes, but Lebanon, it's a very old story that goes back basically in the modern era to the French colonialism that created there a situation of all kinds of sects, religious, that living together in the framework of nation state, but actually Lebanon always suffered from foreign involvement like Syria and others. And the structure of the politics in Lebanon is that it's a kind of each sect initiative to live a better life that in certain time work in better harmony than other times. But in the last few years, you probably remember the garbage strike that took almost a year in Lebanon. And more specifically, after the assassination of Rafik al-Hariri, actually it came very bad situation. And Hezbollah, as part of the Shiite community in Lebanon, is Lebanese citizens, but they are blamed within Lebanon, not only once, as an agent of Iran that actually creates a situation that make Lebanon very, very problematic. Now, the new suggestion of Nasrallah to be I would say, depend on the energy from Iran are not accepted well among many citizens of Lebanon, because they're afraid that they will make Lebanon one more proxy body for Iran, such as the Houthis in Yemen or Shiites in Iraq, and so on. And they would like to be independent states when they used to be Paris of the Middle East, with a good life, with a good merchandise and tourism, which is stopped now. But that bad situation we don't recall a long, long time ago. So it depends heavily on the assistance that France and other Western countries would get to Lebanon, but those countries are conditioning the assistance with a better situation within the Lebanese politics. So we need to see where the domestic powers within Lebanon will enable Hezbollah to bring the assistance of Iran to Lebanon. And from our part, as Minister Gantz had declared, I think it would be both beneficial and humanitarian line to go on and offer assistance to Lebanon.
Yeah, you're saying that actually that offering assistance is for free. So, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, my conclusion from what you said is the threat, the immediate threat from Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah regarding the situation, the severe situation in Lebanon is now less than it used to be before this crisis erupted. Am I right?
Is a little bit more complicated than that, but basically yes, because Hezbollah has its own problems with it suffering many loss of life of his people in Syria during working together with Iran against us from our northern border, and they have a greater hostility among the citizens of Lebanon against his activity. The blaming of Hezbollah as endangering of Lebanon security raised recently with the big explosion in the port of Beirut, and also the blaming of hiding ammunition and missiles under the airport of Beirut are not giving Hezbollah a big credit among Lebanese citizens. And frankly, many of them ask themselves why Hezbollah, because of its own interests, are endangering the entire state of Lebanon because he is Nasrallah's ambitious in the area.
Of course. So the domestic front right now is a lot more. It's on fire. So is occupied there, and I want to go now to a place you know very well because you've been Israel's ambassador to Egypt, and it is no secret that Benjamin Netanyahu enjoyed a close relationship, not like the relationship with King Abdullah, with Egyptian President Sisi. Can, in your opinion, Ambassador Haim Koren, Bennett-Lapid government preserve this alliance, and on what basis?
Definitely. In the end, we're talking about geostrategical interest, and we need to say a word about President Sisi, that he understood very fast that he needs to update the main principle of the national security of Egypt, and due to that of the region. So when he came to power in 2014, he made very clear that his main interest is to preserve security of Egypt and the economy of Egypt, which means he needs to change the platform and work with as many alliances as he could in order to promote that. And that means to create of a coalition with the Arab Sunni countries, which thinking like him, the Emirates, Bahrain, Jordan, and Israel within that coalition. In order to fight with the main two targets that are endangering the region. First, Iran. Second, the terrorism. Now, according to his definition, Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they all belong to the same source of terrorism, and he determined to fight with them. So it's very clear that the common interest with us, which are sharing a border, and we are cooperating militarily against terrorism, it's very clear that it's a common interest. Now, bear in mind that from the last few years, when we founded here in the Eastern Mediterranean, many gas fields in the sea, the access between Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, and then to go out and export this gas through Greek to Europe and creating the Eastern Mediterranean, the main hub of gas, made this interest even stronger now. So there's no reason not to cooperate with those two countries. And I assume Bennett and his government will find very easily the way to cooperate on the same track with President Sisi and to find out the common goals that we have together. I don't see any reason not to do so. As we referred to this issue before, I think that Egyptian involvement in the arrangements of the crisis in Gaza will bring Bennett, Lapid, and their people to understand the role of Egypt in the Palestinian issue as well, not only on the bilateral issues. And I assume the understanding in Biden administration how important Egypt is in this region might promote any kind of a way that they will find a common ground to work together.
What can we say, Ambassador Haim Koren, about the military and security cooperation between the IDF and the intelligence on both sides? You just mentioned all the names of the terrorist organizations that we actually share between Israel and Egypt. You have Al-Qaeda, the branch of the Sinai Peninsula. You have Jihad and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So what can we say about the very close cooperation I'm talking about on the ground against these enemies?
I think that once President Sisi spoke about it in a program in the ABC, if I'm not mistaken, about the cooperation, but usually the sides are not giving
too many details
about.
Yes.
Yeah.
We keep low profile. So let's talk about another place that you know very well. You served as Israel's first ever ambassador to South Sudan, and you are very familiar with the situation in Sudan. Do you think Israel should help Sudan with its economic rebuilding? And could this advanced normalization with Khartoum beyond the initial steps made by Netanyahu last year?
I think if you look from regional perspective, Sudan is extremely important. When we're talking about Israel interest in the region, if Sudan will sign a final peace agreement with us, actually you have a very good access to the Red Sea. And in fact, if you have a good relation with Egypt, with South Sudan, with Ethiopia, all the way down to Somalia and Djibouti, you have a much better and easier presence in the Red Sea, while the Red Sea today around the world is extremely important a place, because if you just take a look who is being there from the European Union, from the Americans, Russia, Turkey, India, China, that's a very
Iran.
It's a very critical a place between the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Mediterranean. So
the stability in that area is extremely important. You probably remember what happened during the 90s when NATO had to fight against piracy, and successfully, because of that important. And also that the corridor to Eastern Africa, namely when you go inside through Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Kenya, and Uganda, actually that's the area of where there's a lot of Christian population, and they also helping to fight against terrorism in Africa, such as Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and others. And it's a very important stronghold for the Western world there. Therefore, it's extremely important. Now, Israel has interest to work with Sudan due to the fact that Sudan used to be, for many years, according to Sudan's terminology, an enemy of Israel. Now, they stopped it basically. Bashir got in a decision to stop fighting, to cooperating with terrorists in 2014, and in 2015 he broke the relationship with Iran and joined the Arab coalition that fought in Yemen. And if you connected it to what I said about Sisi's strategy in the region, Sudan became from an enemy of Egypt and the Arab coalition to another member of it, that joining them in the fight in Yemen against the Houthis and against Iran together. So it's extremely important that Sudan will be part of that coalition. And that's why America is looking at Sudan as a very important power in the region. And also, of course, for Israel, the image of one more Arab country that follows Bahrain and the Emirates and Morocco, and joining to the relationship with Israel, it's extremely important. Now, practically, it's definitely can be very helpful, because Sudan needs badly for its economy many projects, specifically in agriculture, in irrigation, in solar energy, all these things that Israel has a very good expert, well known all around the world, and we can definitely cooperate.
By the way, the foreign media published that before this decision that you just mentioned by President Bashir, the Israeli Air Force conducted a few airstrikes in Sudan against weapons and ammunition that were sent from Iran in order, to go on the other way towards Gaza, etc.
That was, according to foreign press, it was from 2009.
Yes,
many bombing, both in the place that Iranian guards had a factory for ammunition and missiles that was brought through Port Sudan to Gaza, and also to Lebanon, and also in 2010 and 12. I think that what brought Bashir then to speak about changing the
policy,
the agenda and the policy. And his foreign minister then, Ibrahim Randour, said publicly that what the hell we need from Iran, we have a bad image and we don't get the assistance we expected. And I think some of the temptation to move towards the Saudi side was the support of Saudi if Sudan will cut the relationship with Iran and join the war in Yemen. And that
they expected to get the compensation, and let's hope that they will, from Washington, from Riyadh, and from Jerusalem. And you mentioned America.
And also from the Emirates.
Of course.
Yeah.
You mentioned the United States, so I won't, we are almost out of time, but I cannot, we cannot close this interesting conversation without talking about the United States, because one secret of the Netanyahu power vis-a-vis all these Sunni countries was his access to Washington in the Donald Trump era, his ability to deliver Washington. Now we have a brand new administration, Democratic administration, Joe Biden, and they already issued the statement, a not very good statement about Israel demolishing a house of one terrorist in the West Bank. So do you think the the Bennett-Lapid government will be able to use this weapon that we call Washington, D.C., in its contacts with the Arab states, or do we face a brand new reality where Israel is just another state in the region?
Let's don't forget that President Biden is a very experienced American politician. He knows the Middle East as well, and frankly, he's well known as a supporter of Israel for many, many years. We don't need to forget that. When you check very carefully his the officials that running the issues in the Middle East, they are all very experienced and knowledgeable about the area. And I don't think there will be a big change in the understanding of what's going on here. And they are not anti-Israeli. They know our people very well. Don't forget that Benny Gantz is well known there, while the time he served there as attaché and so on. And they know our people, they know the area, they know the difficulties. One more thing that people tend to forget, whether they like it or not, under Trump administration, and I would not go to domestic American issues, but what he did with the Abraham Accord changed some realities here in the Middle East. Now, as a smart and experienced president, they cannot ignore that. Now, that's what I said before about connecting that with the Palestinian issues. They cannot ignore the changes and the good relations now between Israel and the Sunni Arab coalition that's working for the sake of the US as well as a superpower who seeks stability in the Middle East. So I'm sure that they will find a way together with Bennett government and Lapid to see how to go and work together and live an open access and preserve the special relationship with Israel. Don't forget, we had our new government too here, not only in the US. And whenever you have new governments and you find a way to speak with each other, you can find a lot of common ground and preserve the special status of Israel in the US. So I'm not pessimistic in that regard. I think both new administration can work pretty well together, and also preserving the image of and unique, I would say, unique role of Israel in the relation.
And let's not forget that President Biden in the past said you don't need to be a Jew in order to be a Zionist, and I'm a Zionist. So, right. We just arrived to my final question, because maybe this was supposed to be the first one, because even if the Bennett-Lapid government will fail almost in everything, and we don't hope it will happen, the historic drama that it produced is first time in history in the domestic arena. An Arab-Israeli party, Ram, is now an active member and player in Israel's government. It's like a dream that comes true. It's the first time, of course, in Israel's history. And I want to ask you, as an expert, also to the Israeli Arab society, is Ram, under the leadership of Knesset member Mansour Abbas, a classic type of fundamentalist Muslim Brotherhood party? And if so, can it truly bury its religious nationalist agenda in order to benefit its supporters by cooperating with the Zionist government? Do you agree with those who regard this development as both dramatic and historic?
That's truly very interesting. The first time that Islamic movement joining the government. But don't forget that really presented, because even in Egypt, when Muslim Brotherhood refused to or be denied from joining the Egyptian government because their attitude. And here, out of the Middle East, here in the Zionist state, they joining the government. That's really, now, we have to go a little bit more deeper in order to understand how it looked like. We have two sides of the Islamic movement in Israel. What we call the northern one, which is totally identified with Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, headed by a man who from what we call the triangle, al-Fahim. The other place that is very centered very well is Kafr Kanna in the Galilee in the Netherlands. Those are the centers of what we call the northern Islam, denying any connection with the Zionist government. They would adopting the line of the Hamas. Now, the southern Islamic movement, headed by Abbas today, was founded in the 80s by Abdullah Nimr Darwish, who were from Kafr Qasim, and they decided not to go with the classical jihadist line of the Muslim Brotherhood, but to take part in the Israeli politics for the sake of its Arab citizens. So it, for the first time, joined the elections in the local authorities, which means cities,
the municipality
and local
authorities, yes.
Yes, and they were integrated into the system, and which makes the gap between the northern side totally ungappable. So they're actually not working together. The fact that for the first time we have somebody, namely Mansour Abbas, that coming from northern side of Israel, from Mrar, which is a place that Druze and Muslims and Christian living together in the same place, is definitely reflecting on that practical way of thinking. Now, I know that some other experts will argue that that's the way that Muslim movement starting everywhere, like the Hamas, like what's going on with Erdogan in Turkey now, and so on. That's true, I'm not denying. But here we're talking about Israeli citizens, Arab Muslim, but Israeli citizens who are totally integrated with the Israeli life here and truly care of interests that were frankly neglected by other Arab leaders here in the government, which were bound more sometimes to Palestinian interests rather than their own people who are living in Israel here. And he said very clearly, publicly, in Arabic and in English, that he would like to be part of a government in order to take care in a better way to the interest of the Arab citizens in Israel, which makes sense. Now we need to see how this model is working. I think that the fact that Bennett government, who consider right-winger, together with Abbas, together with Meretz, that's very interesting experiment, to my mind, with a big potential to promote relationship domestically among many parts of the population here.
This is the reason, Haim Koren, I called it a historic move, because it never happened before, and maybe it will prove the Israelis that, yes, we have Arabs in the coalition, Arabs in the government, not only Arabs, but the Islamic movement, and the sun is still shining in the east, and everything's okay, and the security is good, and this can be, the effect of this will outlast the term of the Bennett-Lapid government. Anyway, I want to thank you very much for this very interesting conversation. Ambassador Dr. Haim Koren, it was a privilege to us. Thank you, goodbye, and shalom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll go to a short break. We'll be here with some final thoughts in a moment. Stay with us.
I'm Andrew Parasolidi, president of the award-winning media news site El Monitor, where we cover the Middle East with some of the best reporters and columnists anywhere. And I'm excited to announce our new podcast, On the Middle East, where each week I will interview newsmakers from the U.S. and the region about the latest news and trends with additional commentary from our on-the-ground correspondents. Those of you who follow the region know that what happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. And to cite another great movie line, every time the U.S. tries to get out, the region pulls us back. Your time is valuable, so let me promise you this. You will learn something and you will never be bored, because each week we'll be talking with and listening to those leaders who are making the news and shaping the trends in this critical and fascinating region. So please subscribe to On the Middle East with me, Andrew Parasolidi.
Thank you for staying with us. The first issue we discussed with Ambassador Dr. Haim Koren was the renewal of a direct relationship between Israel's Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, and King Abdullah from Amman, Jordan. And Ambassador Koren was optimistic. He has no doubt that the relationship between Israel and Jordan can be fixed and will improve, although he expects a new pressure from Washington, D.C., President Sisi from Egypt, and King Abdullah from Jordan on Israel on the Palestinian issue. We need to get something done on the ground, said Ambassador Koren. On the Lebanese front, Ambassador Koren thinks that Hezbollah is under huge pressure. It's less dangerous now than it used to be a few years ago, before this crisis erupted. He assumes that many in the Lebanese public sees Nasrallah and Iran as more as the problem than the solution. It will be very difficult to Nasrallah to sell the Iranians as the future saviors of Lebanon, in Ambassador Haim Koren's opinion. In general, Ambassador Koren is optimistic about the new government chances in Israel to fill the gap of and the wide shoes that left after him Benjamin Netanyahu, that evacuated the formal house of the Prime Minister in Jerusalem and Balfour Street just this Saturday. He thinks that the ambassador that the previous American administration and the Prime Minister are leaving a very good job in the region, talking about the Abraham Accords and the new deal in Israel containing Prime Minister Bennett and Foreign Minister Lapid will be able to go on in this momentum, although the American administration is no longer a Republican Trump, but Democratic Biden. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope to meet you here next week in Israel, in Al Monitor. I'm Ben Caspit from Tel Aviv. Take care.